Hello. If you ever want to see true panic, watch someone come home from a vacation expecting comfort, only to find strangers living in their house. That's the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when my cheating wife realized she had lost everything. No screaming, no dramatic confrontation, just pure, cold realization. But let's rewind. I'm Jake, 37, living in Austin, Texas. I had what most people would consider a great life. A well-paying job, a house in a nice neighborhood, and a wife I thought I could trust. Emily and I had been together for 10 years, married for 7. She was ambitious, social, and always had a way of making people like her. She had a successful career in event planning, which meant she was constantly surrounded by high-profile clients and late-night parties. At first, I didn't mind. I trusted her. I believed in her. That was my first mistake. Things started shifting about a year ago. It was little things at first. She started staying late at work more often, was glued to her phone, and started working trips with her boss that seemed to extend by a day or two each time. I brushed it off. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe I was overthinking it. Then came the perfume. A new scent I had never smelled on her before, and not the kind she'd wear for me. The expensive lingerie that I never saw. The gym membership. Except she never really came back looking like she worked out. Still, I didn't want to believe it. I held on to the idea that she was just stressed, that we were in a rough patch. Then one night, she left her laptop open on the counter while she was showering. A message popped up from Nathan. "Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you." My heart stopped. I sat there, staring at the screen, reading line after line of their affair. Texts, emails, hotel receipts, inside jokes that had nothing to do with me. I had been reduced to a punchline in my own marriage. I could have confronted her right then. I could have thrown my ring at her feet, screamed, made a scene. But that's not my style. I don't do temporary pain. I make sure it lasts. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I planned. She had already booked a work trip with her boss for the next week. I decided that while she was off celebrating her betrayal, I would make sure she had nothing to come home to. And so, the countdown began. The first rule of revenge? Patience. Most people, when they discover their spouse is cheating, explode immediately, yelling, throwing accusations, maybe even trashing the house in a fit of rage. But that kind of reaction? It gives the cheater power. It makes them the victim, gives them a way to twist the narrative. That wasn't going to happen here. I wanted Jessica to lose everything without realizing it until it was too late. She packed her bags the night before her business trip, carefully folding her designer outfits, checking her list twice to make sure she had everything she needed for a week of networking. I watched as she spritzed perfume, a scent I had never smelled on her before, onto her wrists and smiled at herself in the mirror. She was glowing, excited, completely unaware that she had already lost. The next morning, I helped her load her suitcase into the car. I even kissed her goodbye. She thought she was leaving behind a devoted, oblivious husband. But the second she pulled out of the driveway, I turned and walked straight back inside. It was time to get to work. The first call I made was to my real estate agent. I told him I needed the house sold immediately, no open houses, no drawn-out negotiations, cash buyers only. He hesitated for a moment, asking if I was sure, but when I told him I was willing to price it slightly under market value for a fast deal, he was all in. Next, I called a moving company. They were scheduled to arrive the next morning. Everything in the house was going. Furniture, decor, her expensive collection of candles, all of it boxed up and out. I kept what was mine, sent a few sentimental items to storage, and everything else? Sold. If she wanted something, she could beg me for it later. Then came the finances. I had already been prepared for this, slowly separating our accounts over the past few months when I first got suspicious. The mortgage? Paid off with my portion of our funds. Her name? Quietly removed from everything. Jessica had spent years curating her life to look flawless on the outside. Carefully arranged furniture, color-coded outfits, curated Instagram posts of a perfect marriage. But she built her foundation on lies. And now, I was burning it down. By noon, I had secured a buyer. A young couple expecting their first child, eager to move in ASAP. They loved the house, the location, everything. We set the closing date for the day before Jessica was set to return. She thought she was leaving behind a devoted husband waiting for her return. She had no idea that when she came back, everything she owned would be gone, and strangers would be living in her dream home. The house felt different now. Not empty, liberated. Every room Jessica had carefully decorated, every expensive candle she had staged for the perfect Instagram aesthetic, every piece of furniture we had picked out together, it was all just stuff. And soon, it wouldn't be hers anymore. As the moving crew arrived the next morning, I supervised with a cup of coffee in hand, watching as my possessions were carefully packed up. Jessica had spent years perfecting this illusion of a perfect home, and now it was being dismantled in a matter of hours. Her favorite reading nook? Gone. The bedroom mirror where she probably checked her outfits before meeting her lover? Wrapped up and loaded onto a truck. The kitchen island where we used to share Sunday breakfasts? Now an empty slab of marble, waiting for its new owners. I wasn't just taking away her physical space, I was erasing every comfort she thought she had. The best part? She had no idea. While she was sipping overpriced cocktails in some beachside resort, wrapped around a man who thought he had won some grand prize, I was ensuring she would return to a life unrecognizable. After the movers left, I sat in the silent, hollowed-out house and checked my phone. Everything was running on schedule. The paperwork was finalized. The new owners were beyond thrilled to move in, and the last loose ends were neatly tied. But I wasn't done. I needed to make sure Jessica's return was as dramatic as possible. So, I took one final step, one that would seal the deal on her downfall. Jessica had always been a little careless with finances. She liked to splurge and assume the bills would take care of themselves. Most of our household expenses were linked to our joint account, the one I had slowly been transferring money out of for months. Now, it was time to finish the job. I moved every last cent into an account with my name only. The credit cards? Frozen. The emergency savings? Moved. When she tried to check into her return flight, declined. When she tried to book an Uber, card blocked. When she reached for her phone to call the bank, she'd find out I had already closed our shared accounts. I didn't want to be cruel. I had kept a few of her personal belongings, her childhood keepsakes, a few sentimental items, things I knew would actually matter to her. But instead of handing them over, I had them delivered to a storage facility on the other side of the city. When she finally tracked them down, she would find a tiny, impersonal storage unit with a note taped to the inside. Jessica, I hope your trip was worth it. Enjoy your new reality. Ethan. No screaming. No confrontation. Just cold, undeniable proof that she had lost everything. This was the part one was most excited for. Jessica's flight landed at 7:45 p.m. By 8:30 p.m., she was back in our neighborhood, dragging her expensive suitcase up to the front door, probably already planning what excuse she would give me for being too busy to call. Only to find a different car in the driveway, different lights on inside the house, strangers opening the door to greet her. I could picture the exact moment it would hit her. The instant panic, the confusion, the realization that something was horribly, horribly wrong. She would fumble for her keys, try to unlock the door, only to find them useless. She would ring the doorbell, expecting me, only for the new owners to tell her they had no idea who she was. The final, brutal punch? When she checked her phone and saw my last message, sent minutes before she landed. Hope the trip was worth it. You don't live here anymore. No screaming match. No drawn-out fights. Just cold, calculated consequences. Jessica had planned her dream vacation. I had planned her worst nightmare, and I enjoyed every second of it. The moment Jessica returned from her tropical getaway, she expected comfort, familiarity, and the perfect lie waiting for her. Instead, she walked straight into a nightmare of her own making. I wasn't there to see it happen in real time, but I didn't need to be. I had set every domino perfectly in place, and now, all I had to do was sit back and enjoy the aftermath. She arrived at their house at exactly 8:37 p.m., dragging her designer suitcase up the driveway, probably exhausted from her business trip. Maybe she was texting her lover, telling him how much she missed him already. Maybe she was rehearsing the same tired excuse she always used when she got home later than expected. But then, she saw the car. A different car. A family car. Not mine. Then, the front porch light was on. Someone inside was moving around. I can only imagine the initial confusion as she slowed down, her mind trying to justify it. Maybe I had company? Maybe I had friends over? Maybe it was a misunderstanding? But then she saw it, the unfamiliar face at the window. A woman, definitely not me, peeking outside for just a second before disappearing into the house. That's when the panic started to set in. Jessica rushed up the steps, yanking out her keys, fumbling to fit them into the lock. But no matter how hard she twisted, the door wouldn't budge. She rang the doorbell. Once. Twice. Desperation creeping in. A moment later, the door opened. But not to me. A man stood there, mid-40s, confused, wearing a t-shirt that had nothing to do with my wardrobe. Behind him, his wife peered over his shoulder. A baby was crying somewhere inside. I would have given anything to see Jessica's face at that exact moment. "Can I help you?" the man probably asked. And that's when it hit her. Her mouth moved, but no words came out. Her mind was scrambling. Her heart was racing. This was her home. Except, it wasn't. She didn't live here anymore. At 8:45 p.m., my phone buzzed. I was sitting comfortably in a bar across town, sipping whiskey and waiting. I let it ring. Once. Twice. 3 times. Then, finally, I answered. Jessica's voice was frantic, breathless, completely shattered. "Ethan, I let her get 3 words in before I cut her off. Hope the trip was worth it. You don't live here anymore." And then, I hung up. No screaming match. No dramatic argument. No explanations. Because what was there to explain? She knew exactly what she had done. And now, she was standing in the wreckage of her own choices. The next morning, she tried everything to contact me. Calls, texts, emails, all ignored. I wasn't playing the role of the hurt, abandoned husband. No, I was untouchable now. I knew she would eventually track down the storage unit I had left for her. A tiny, soulless metal box on the other side of the city, filled with the remnants of her former life. Inside, she would find a suitcase with a handful of her clothes, enough to get by, but none of her favorites. The photo album from our wedding, because I wanted her to remember what she destroyed. A single note taped to the wall. You had a home. You had a husband. You had everything. Now, you have this. What happens next? She tried to get sympathy from friends, but guess what? News spreads fast. Turns out, people aren't exactly lining up to support a woman who got kicked out of her own house for cheating. Her lover? Nowhere to be found. He had no intention of dealing with the fallout. Jessica lost everything. The house. The stability. The husband who would have done anything for her. All gone in the span of 1 week. And the best part? I never had to raise my voice. I never had to beg for answers. I let her actions bury her. And I walked away with everything. Jessica wasn't just homeless now. She was trapped in a reality where nothing made sense anymore. Her house was gone. Her finances were frozen. And the man she had thrown everything away for? Nowhere to be found. I knew she would try to rebuild her control. That's the kind of person she was. Always needing to be on top. Always manipulating situations to her advantage. But the thing about playing the long game is that once you take away someone's safety net, they start to fall fast. And Jessica? She was in free fall. The first thing she did was call every mutual friend we had. I could picture the conversations perfectly. "Ethan is going crazy. I came home, and strangers were living in my house. I don't know what happened." She probably expected sympathy, expected someone to agree that I had lost my mind. But here's the problem. She didn't just betray me. She lied to everyone around her for months. The texts, the emails, the fake business trips. She had built her social circle on an illusion, and now that the truth was out, nobody wanted to get involved. I had quietly made sure of that, too. The night before Jessica got back, I sent a carefully worded message to our closest friends. "Hey, just a heads up. Jessica and I are done. She was cheating, so I sold the house. She'll probably reach out to you. So I just wanted you to hear it from me first. No drama, No fighting. I just walked away. Hope you're all doing well. Nothing aggressive. No bitterness. Just the cold, simple truth. By the time Jessica called them, they already knew. And the reactions? Not what she expected. Some ignored her completely. Others gave her the polite, fake concern of someone who didn't want to take sides. But no one rushed to her defense. No one volunteered their couch. And just like that, Jessica had nowhere to go. With her social life in shambles, there was only one person left to turn to, her lover, Nathan. She must have thought he would swoop in and save her, that he'd let her stay with him until she got back on her feet. Maybe he had even promised her that during their little getaway. But Jessica was about to learn the most brutal lesson of all. The man who cheats with you is never the man who saves you. Nathan was married. A fact Jessica had conveniently ignored, thinking their relationship was different, thinking she was special. But when she called him, probably in full panic mode, desperate, pleading, he didn't answer. She tried again. Straight to voicemail. The next day, his number was disconnected. Nathan had done what all cheaters do when the fantasy gets too real. He ran. Jessica had gambled everything on a man who was never planning on leaving his real life for her. And now, she had no life to return to. I wish I could say I felt bad. That watching her world implode gave me some kind of secondhand guilt. But here's the truth. I didn't. Jessica made her choices, carefully, deliberately, without an ounce of regret. She didn't hesitate to lie to my face, to steal time from my life while secretly building a future that didn't include me. She thought she had options. She thought if things went south, she could just pivot, manipulate her way out, land somewhere safe. She didn't realize I had already burned every bridge before she even had the chance to cross it. Jessica ended up staying in a cheap motel for a few nights, probably burning through the last bit of cash she had access to. No job, no stability, no cushy home to return to. She sent a few pathetic, half-baked messages. "Ethan, let's talk. This got out of control. I know you're angry, but we can figure this out. You're acting crazy." I read them all. Never responded. Because here's the thing about real revenge. It doesn't come from yelling, from fighting, from letting them see you suffer. It comes from silence. She had spent months ignoring me while living her double life. Now, she was the one screaming into the void. And I wasn't listening. Jessica always thought she was untouchable. That no matter what she did, she could talk her way out of it. Convince people to see things her way, spin the story in her favor. That was her greatest strength. But when your entire life is built on manipulation, the moment you lose control of the narrative is the moment everything collapses. And now, she had lost everything. She had no home, no money, no lover to run to. And the one person who could have saved her, me, was already gone. But she still had one last card to play. Or at least, she thought she did. Jessica had spent years perfecting the art of appearing strong. Even when she was wrong, she never admitted defeat. Never let people see her sweat. But now, she was desperate. And desperate people make stupid choices. I got a call from a random number. Declined it. Then another. Ignored. Then came an email, titled, "We need to talk." I almost laughed. The same woman who had lied to my face for months, who had stolen from our marriage without a second thought, now suddenly wanted to talk. But I opened it anyway. Curiosity, if nothing else. "Ethan, I know you're angry, but this isn't fair. I understand you're hurt, but you didn't have to do this. You sold the house out from under me, locked me out of our accounts, and turned everyone against me. I have nothing. You can't seriously think this is okay." I read it twice. It was incredible. Not a single apology. Not 1 ounce of accountability. Just pure, self-righteous indignation, as if she was the victim in all of this. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. And then, she did something I actually didn't expect. She showed up. It was late, maybe 10 p.m., when I heard the knock on my apartment door. Not frantic, not aggressive, controlled, calculated. She still thought she could talk her way out of this, that if she just saw me in person, I would cave. I let her knock 3 times before I opened the door. There she was. Jessica. She looked awful. Not just tired, exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from realizing, deep down, that you have nothing left. She tried to smile, but I could see the cracks in her mask. Can we talk? I didn't say anything, just leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, waiting. She shifted her weight, fidgeted with her sleeve. She wasn't used to this dynamic. She was used to being in control. I don't understand why you had to do this. I blinked. That was her opening line? I mean, I get that you're mad, but you? I finally spoke. Mad. I repeated, my voice calm, even. You think I did all of this because I was mad? She hesitated. She had expected rage, shouting, emotion. Instead, she got cold indifference. I smiled. That got to her. Because she realized, in that moment, that she didn't matter to me anymore. That was the real punishment. Not losing the house. Not losing her money. Losing me. Jessica had always assumed I would be there. Her backup plan. The safety net she could fall into if things didn't work out. But now, she had nothing. And she knew it. She tried again, her voice quieter now. I don't know what to do. I let the silence stretch. Let her feel the weight of it. Then, finally, I gave her the answer she had been dreading. Not my problem. And I closed the door in her face. That was the last time I saw Jessica. She tried reaching out a few more times. Texts, voicemails, even a handwritten letter, which was a new low for her, considering she once told me she didn't believe in writing things down. But I never responded. Because the truth is, I had already moved on. I sold the house, started fresh, took the money, and went on a vacation of my own. A real one. No lies, no guilt, just me, the ocean, and a drink in my hand. Jessica? She bounced around for a while, crashed on a friend's couch, drained what little money she had left, tried to get another job in the same industry, but couldn't escape the whispers. People talk. And the story of how she lost everything? Let's just say it followed her. She learned the hard way that actions have consequences. And as for me, I never looked back. Bye-bye.